Okay, let's unpack this. We've been given quite a challenging stack of sources today. A collection of research really promising a deep nutritional reckoning. Our mission is to analyze 15 specific foods that are apparently so pervasive and, well, subtly problematic that the sources label them as slowly harming your health, often without people realizing, the mechanisms.
That's exactly right. And this deep dive, it's designed as a total shortcut for you, the listener. We're aiming to cut straight past the generic eat healthy advice.
Yeah, get specific.
Exactly. Identify the specific ingredients and the physiological processes, the how and why, that link these 15 items to major long-term issues. We're talking chronic inflammation, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease.
All the big ones.
All the big ones. We're focusing on that cumulative effect over time.
And looking at the list, it is genuinely surprising. I mean, some items, okay, they're obvious offenders, right?
Sure.
But others are like Trojan horses, things we might actually believe are, good for us, or at least neutral.
Yeah.
We're going to cover all 15, grouping them by sort of their core mechanisms of harm.
Yeah.
But you absolutely have to stick around for number 15.
Yes.
The one the sources actually call the big one. It's like a synthesis of almost all the other threats we'll talk about.
And consumed by so many people, often daily.
Right. And another one, we'll get to it, is eaten almost every single day too. It's fascinating stuff.
It is. And the pattern we see emerging from all this material, it's this reliance on hyperpalatability. It's engineered, really, through cheap shot, unhealthy fats, and just excessive sodium.
That trifecta.
Understanding that pattern, that's the key to minimizing the risk. So where should we start? Maybe where the body is, well, least equipped to handle the incoming load.
Sounds good. Let's talk liquid forms. Okay, so if we're looking at where this nutritional sabotage often begins, the sources immediately flag sugary drinks. #1. They straight up call them liquid candy.
They do.
Now that seems kind of intuitive, but maybe we need to break down for the audience the technical reason why liquid sugar is metabolized so much more destructively than, say, the sugar in a piece of fruit or even a dessert.
Absolutely. What's truly fascinating here, and what the sources really emphasize, is the fundamental difference in how your body processes calories in liquid versus solid form. It's quite different.
Oh, so?
Well, when you consume sugar that's dissolved in water, like in a soda, you basically bypass the normal digestive signals. There's no chewing.
Right.
There's no fiber slowing the intake. And because of that, the sugar, especially the glucose part, gets absorbed almost instantaneously into your bloodstream.
Wow, okay, so the speed is the primary problem here. That massive, rapid influx means your pancreas has to just, boom, release a huge dose of insulin to handle that blood sugar spike.
Precisely. And crucially, the liquid form actively tricks your satiety hormones, your hunger and fullness hormones.
Ah, the ones that tell you you're full.
Exactly. The sources point out that ghrelin and leptin, those are the main ones, they just don't register liquid calories effectively. So someone drinking, say, 300 calories of soda won't feel anywhere near as full as someone eating 300 calories of solid food.
Which leads directly to what the sources call, inadequate caloric compensation.
That's the term. You consume the energy, but you don't naturally reduce your food intake later on to make up for it. So it dramatically drives up your overall daily calories.
That failure of satiety, that makes so much sense. It's a core mechanism, really, fueling the obesity epidemic. But isn't there also a second metabolic challenge, specifically with the type of sugar often used, like high fructose corn syrup?
Yes, that brings us straight to the liver. This is critical. Unlike glucose, which pretty much every cell in your body can use for immediate energy, fructose has to be processed almost entirely by the liver.
Okay.
So when your liver gets suddenly overloaded with the amount of fructose you find in a large sugary drink, it just struggles to keep up. This rapid metabolism forces it to produce triglycerides, it's fat.
In the liver itself?
Yes, and over time, this contributes significantly to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease,
Yeah.
NAFLD. Even in people who don't drink alcohol, you're literally overloading one of your body's most crucial filtration and metabolic organs. It's a direct hit.
That sets a really dangerous precedent, and it brings us kind of naturally to our next liquid trap, which is number 8 on the list, energy drinks. #8. The marketing promises, enhanced focus, physical performance, all that good stuff. But what specific cocktail of ingredients causes the sources to label these as such a severe risk?
Well, that perceived boost, it's really a deliberate deception. It's built on a foundation of massive chemical stimulation. We're talking about the combination of extremely high doses of refined sugar,
How high are we?
often exceeding 50 grams per can, sometimes more,
Wow.
coupled with 2, maybe 3 times the caffeine content of a standard cup of coffee. But it's not just that. The sources highlight the addition of other ingredients like taurine, guarana, B vitamins.
But aren't those sometimes marketed as beneficial?
They are, but they're often in doses far exceeding what the body can actually use or needs. They kind of act as window dressing.
Giving the illusion of nutritional value while just compounding the stimulant load?
Exactly. That extreme combination of sugar and caffeine puts intense, immediate stress on the cardiovascular system. The sources explicitly warn this can lead to heart palpitations, rhythm disruptions, dangerously elevated blood pressure, especially in younger people who might be consuming them more regularly.
And the long-term cumulative effect.
Well, think about the inevitable sugar and caffeine crash that follows that high. It drives a really strong dependency loop. The sources note that regular consumers often become reliant on these intense artificial boosts just to feel normal, just to maintain baseline functionality.
Which is pretty much the definition of metabolic dependence.
It really is. It's a risky cycle.
Okay, all right. Let's pivot slightly. Still in the liquidish realm, but something that often masquerades as a health food. This creates a different kind of sugar deception. Flavored yogurt. #7.
Oh, this is a big one for many people.
It really is. For years, yogurt's been hailed for its probiotics, its protein content. Why is this such a major aha moment on the list?
Well, this raises that critical question of, industrial intervention versus the natural food quality. Plain yogurt, especially plain Greek yogurt, is actually an excellent food, high in protein, probiotics.
Right.
The issue starts when manufacturers try to make it more like a dessert to, increase its palatability for the mass market, make it sweeter, smoother.
And the sources, they provide a really visceral comparison here, don't they? Something about candy bars?
They do. The specific analysis shows that many popular flavored yogurts contain as much, or sometimes even more, added sugar than a standard chocolate candy bar.
Get out, really?
Really. Often exceeding 25 to 30 grams of added sugar per single serving container. And this added sugar, whether it's listed as fruit concentrate, cane sugar, or high fructose corn syrup, it effectively neutralizes the very probiotic benefit you probably bought the yogurt for in the first place.
How does it neutralize it?
Well, think about it. That immediate influx of simple sugar acts as a preferred food source for the potentially detrimental bacteria already in your gut. They thrive on sugar. So it competes directly against the beneficial cultures you're trying to promote.
You're basically feeding the bad guys while trying to introduce the good guys. Pouring gas on the fire, metabolically speaking.
That's a great way to put it. You're creating an environment that's actually hostile to the beneficial gut cultures you want. The simple, practical solution, which the source material offers, is key.
Which is?
Stick to plain, unsweetened yogurt. You still get the high protein, the probiotics, the low natural sugar content. Then you control the sweetness. Add a few fresh berries, maybe a tiny drizzle of honey if you need it.
So you get the benefits without that massive sugar shock.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
the perfect example of controlling the ingredients yourself rather than just trusting the manufacturer's health claims on the packaging.
Okay, now we shift gears entirely. We're moving into the world of packaged foods. Things prioritized for convenience, for shelf life.
Which often comes at the expense of our long-term health.
Exactly. We kick this section off with processed meats, #2. Think hot dogs, sausages, bacon, those deli cold cuts. The risk here seems less about sugar and more about how they're preserved, right?
That's correct. The core danger here stems from the necessary processes of curing and preserving meat for industrial scale production and, shelf stability. These items are overloaded with sodium. Yes, that's one issue.
But there's a deeper concern.
There is. It lies in the use of specific chemical preservatives, namely nitrates and nitrites. The source material is very, very explicit in connecting these compounds to long-term health risks.
Okay, let's get technical for a second because this is where that cancer risk comes in, isn't it? When meat containing these nitrates and nitrites is exposed to high heat, like frying bacon or grilling sausages, what specific harmful compounds are actually created?
Right. The heat acts as a catalyst. It transforms those nitrites into compounds called nitrosamines.
Nitrosamine.
And nitrosamines are known carcinogens, potent ones. Furthermore, the high-temperature cooking of muscle tissue itself regardless of nitrates, generates other harmful compounds. Things like heterocyclic amines, HCAs, and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PAHs, they tend to accumulate on the charred surfaces.
So it's a double whammy of compounds.
It is. And the sources directly link regular consumption of these processed meats to a significantly increased risk of colorectal cancer and also heart disease. It really is a biological compromise made for the sake of convenience and shelf life.
It's that cumulative exposure to these chemical byproducts over time that poses the threat.
Okay, following that theme of cheap and fast convenience, we hit instant noodles. #3.
Ah, the college staple.
Exactly. While they are a global staple because they're so cheap, the sources basically paint them as a complete nutritional dead zone.
They really are. They're essentially a combination of refined flour, very cheap fat, and preservative agents delivered with an absolutely extreme salt load.
Yeah, the salt is notorious. When you actually examine the nutritional label, you see unhealthy fats, often palm oil, which is high in saturated fat, just excessive sodium, and a lot of artificial flavorings designed to trick your palate into thinking there's actual depth of flavor there.
I remember the source material mentioning a particular preservative used to get that super long shelf life. What was that compound called again? Why is it a concern?
The sources specifically call out tertiary butyl hydroquinone, or TBHQ.
TBHQ.
It's a petroleum-derived antioxidant, and it's used extensively in fats that need to be shelf-stable for a long time. Now, while the FDA deems it safe in very minute quantities...
Here comes the but.
Right. The concern, once again, is a cumulative effect of consuming it regularly, maybe in multiple processed foods. And you combine that with the staggering sodium content. Many single servings of instant noodles contain over 80% of your entire recommended daily allowance for sodium.
80% in one small packet.
In one go. That level of sodium intake puts immediate and immense strain on your kidneys and your blood pressure regulation systems. It's just too much.
So it's a cheap, fast meal that comes with this massive hidden cost to your vascular health, your kidney health.
Wow.
Now let's talk about products literally engineered for addiction. Packaged snacks and chips, #4. The sources claim these are meticulously engineered to make you crave more. How do they do that?
This gets into the science of the bliss point. Food scientists manipulate 3 key elements: fat, salt, and texture.
The trifecta again, but texture too.
Texture's huge. That crunch and then the rapid melt in your mouth quality, it maximizes sensory pleasure. These snacks are typically fried in unhealthy oils, often partially hydrogenated oils back in the day, now often other cheap oils, and then coated in highly palatable salt and various flavor enhancers.
And the processing itself creates issues.
Yes. The rapid ingestion of these components, often combined with starches from the potato or corn, also leads to the creation of harmful compounds during the high heat manufacturing process.
I assume you're talking about acrylamides, those chemical byproducts.
Precisely. Acrylamides are compounds formed in starchy foods during high temperature cooking, like frying or baking chips and crackers. The sources identify these compounds as potential human carcinogens.
So not only are these snacks packed with unhealthy fats and salt, offering, as the sources say, almost zero nutritional value,
Virtually none.
but the cooking process itself generates compounds known to be toxic. It's a textbook example of prioritizing profit and sheer palatability over any kind of biological integrity.
Absolutely. Engineered temptation.
And if we look a bit further down the convenience aisle, we find canned soups, #10. Now, soup is often seen as, comforting, restorative, which makes the canned variety a perfect health imposter sometimes.
It's often the silent sodium killer. That's the main issue. To ensure a very long shelf life and a consistent, robust flavor, often using relatively low-quality, inexpensive ingredients, manufacturers rely almost entirely on excessive sodium. Salt is cheap, it preserves, and it makes things taste good, masking other deficiencies.
And the warning from the source material was pretty startling, wasn't it, about the daily limit?
It was. One single bowl of many popular canned soups can meet, or sometimes even exceed, the American Heart Association's entire recommended daily sodium limit, which is 2,300 milligrams.
That is an incredible overload for just one part of one meal. What's the immediate physiological consequence of dumping that much sodium into your system at once?
Well, that sudden influx dramatically increases the osmotic pressure in your bloodstream. Your body has to compensate by retaining water to dilute all that salt.
Which drives up blood volume.
Exactly. Driving up blood volume puts significant, immediate strain on your arteries and your heart. For someone maybe already struggling with high blood pressure, This single meal can be genuinely dangerous. And furthermore, many canned soups use flavor enhancers like MSG, monosodium glutamate, to compensate for using maybe lower quality overcooked vegetables and meats. So the overall nutritional profile just ends up being very poor beyond just the sodium.
Okay, finally, in this category of these highly processed convenience items, we have to address processed cheese. #13. And we need to be really clear here, differentiating this from natural cheese.
Absolute critical distinction. Natural cheese as a fermented product can offer legitimate nutritional value protein, calcium, some fats in moderation, of course. But the key word here is processed. We're talking about those individually wrapped slices, the cheese spreads, the blocks of cheese product, designed purely for that perfect, smooth melting and almost infinite shelf life.
And the source material is pretty blunt, isn't it?
It states unequivocally that these items aren't real cheese in the nutritional sense. They're cheese-like substances.
So what replaces the natural components of dairy? What are they actually made of?
Well, it's often a cocktail of emulsifiers, chemicals, artificial colors, and artificial flavors. Manufacturers use things like sodium phosphate and potassium phosphate as chemical binders. These prevent the natural fat and protein from separating.
That's how they get that unnaturally smooth, perfect melt every time.
That's exactly it. So while natural cheese offers protein and calcium, processed cheese is essentially a synthetic delivery system for excess sodium, often saturated fat, combined with compounds the body just doesn't recognize as real food. If you're serious about avoiding unnecessary additives and controlling your sodium intake, this is definitely a product to eliminate completely.
All right, shifting gears again. Let's talk about some staples. The basic building blocks of many diets that have been, well, fundamentally altered by industrial processing. Starting with number 5, white bread. #5.
Yes.
Classic. Most of us grew up eating it, right? But the sources categorize it as one of the worst staples for overall metabolic health. Why is that?
The fundamental flaw lies in that refinement process. When wheat is milled to create white flour, the bran and the germ, those are the parts containing virtually all the fiber, the B vitamins, iron, minerals.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff, basically. It's intentionally stripped away. What's left is just the endosperm, which is essentially pure refined starch, nothing else.
And that metabolic speed, that's a concept we need to maybe elaborate on a bit more. The sources talk about the glycemic index, the GI, noting that white bread often spikes blood sugar faster than pure table sugar.
That's often true.
Why is that speed so problematic for long-term health, beyond just the sugar crash that follows?
Well, the sheer speed of its conversion to glucose in your bloodstream forces the pancreas into emergency mode. It has to release a huge pulse of insulin to manage that sudden surge.
Okay.
When this happens repeatedly, multiple times a day after day, year after year, it leads directly to chronic insulin resistance. The cells just stop responding properly to insulin's signal.
Which is the precursor to type 2 diabetes.
Exactly. And furthermore, that excess glucose, when insulin is high, gets rapidly stored as fat, often as visceral fat, which is that particularly dangerous fat stored deep within the abdominal cavity, wrapping around your vital organs.
So white bread isn't just empty calories, it's actually an active driver of chronic metabolic inflammation and dysfunction?
Precisely. That spiking crash cycle is a recurring theme with many items on this list, as you said.
It really is. Okay, next up we have deep-fried foods. #6. This covers everything from, French fries to fried chicken, donuts. While we all kind of know these are unhealthy, we should probably detail the specific cardiovascular damage caused by the fats involved.
Right. The primary danger here, historically and often still, is the exposure to trans fats.
Okay.
These foods are often fried in partially hydrogenated oils, which are the main source of synthetic trans fats. Now, trans fats are particularly notorious because they do two bad things simultaneously.
What's that?
They raise your LDL, that's the bad cholesterol, and they actively lower your HDL, the good cholesterol.
That's a double whammy.
It's the worst combination for heart health. It creates an optimal environment for plaque buildup in your arteries, leading to atherosclerosis.
So we're not just talking about gaining weight here, we're detailing direct arterial damage and increased systemic inflammation. I think the sources mentioned a specific inflammatory marker that tends to go up with regular deep-fried food consumption.
They do. They often refer to C-reactive protein, or CRP. It's a general marker for systemic inflammation in the body. Consistent intake of trans fats, and also the harmful compounds created during that high-temperature frying process itself.
Like what?
Things called advanced glycation end products, or AGs. These compounds keep the body in a state of low-grade chronic inflammation. And this silent inflammation is a major contributor to heart disease, and it also seems to accelerate the aging process of the arteries themselves.
Wow, okay. And speaking of trans fats, that brings us almost perfectly to a historical villain in the health world. Margarine. #9.
Oh, margarine. Fascinating story.
It really is. It was actively marketed for decades as the solution, the healthy replacement for butter, specifically to combat saturated fats.
Margarine represents such a powerful historical lesson in, well, trusting industrial processing over nature, perhaps too readily. The big concern back in the mid-20th century was the saturated fat found in butter.
Right. That was the enemy then.
Exactly. So, to create a spreadable, shelf-stable product from cheap liquid vegetable oils, manufacturers developed the chemical process of hydrogenation.
And what does hydrogenation actually do to the fat structure? Why was it used?
Hydrogenation involves adding hydrogen atoms to liquid vegetable oils under pressure. This chemically changes their molecular structure, turning them solid or semi-solid at room temperature, like butter.
Okay, so it made oil spreadable.
Yes, but the major unintended byproduct of this partial hydrogenation process was the creation of trans fatty acids, or trans fats, the very ones we just discussed being so harmful.
So the healthy alternative became a primary source of these dangerous fats.
That's exactly what happened. The sources confirm that for decades, margarine became a major source of dietary trans fats, along with various artificial additives. It was truly a misguided alternative that, metabolically speaking, proved to be significantly more harmful than the natural saturated fat in butter it was designed to replace.
That takeaway is pretty profound. A product designed explicitly for health ended up being a major source of artery-clogging, chemically altered fats. It really demonstrates the potential danger of intensive industrial processing when we try to improve on nature sometimes.
It's a cautionary tale for sure. Check your labels, know what's in your food.
Okay, we've reached the final category, the one often associated with indulgence, but which provides a massive metabolic overload according to these sources. We can probably group together candy, #11, and store-bought pastries, #12, things like muffins, donuts, cakes. They seem to share that core mechanism of excessive sugar, but maybe with a subtle difference in how they deliver it.
That's a good way to put it. The primary difference is maybe complexity or lack thereof. Candy is largely pure sugar, often a very dense hit of glucose and fructose, sometimes with some coloring and flavoring.
Right, simple sugar rush.
Exactly. And as we discussed earlier with sugary drinks, this is a profound shock to the system. It overloads the liver with fructose, spikes blood sugar incredibly rapidly. The sources warn this chronic overload is directly hepatotoxic, meaning it damages liver cells over time and rapidly accelerates the onset of insulin resistance. Plus, the damage to teeth is obvious.
Okay, so candy is like a direct sugar hit. Pastries, on the other hand, seem like more of a composite threat. They combine that massive sugar load with unhealthy fats and that refined white flour we already flagged.
They absolutely are a triple threat in themselves. They are meticulously crafted sugar bombs, as the sources call them.
Sugar bombs, I like that.
The refined flour often hits first, causing that rapid glycemic index spike, just like white bread. Then you have the unhealthy fats, often cheap oils, sometimes saturated, or even remnants of trans fats, which make them moist, give them texture, and make them hyperpalatable.
And that combination is particularly bad.
Yes, this combination of highly refined carbohydrate and dense, often poor quality fat is specifically detrimental because it encourages the body to both store the incoming energy immediately as fat, and it seems to impair the efficient use or burning of that energy. The sugar high and the subsequent crash are often even more dramatic than with simple candy,
leading to those deep, destabilizing hunger pangs and cravings later.
Exactly. It reinforces the cycle.
Okay, that mechanical crash, reinforcing cravings. That pattern extends directly to item number 14, which is ice cream, #14. The sources call this one delicious but dangerous. What makes ice cream uniquely problematic compared to, say, other sweets?
Ice cream is kind of the ultimate indulgent food, isn't it? It delivers massive amounts of both sugar and saturated fat simultaneously, often in a very easily consumed form.
Right.
And this specific combination is particularly harmful because of its impact on what's called metabolic flexibility. That's the body's ability to efficiently switch between burning carbs and burning fat for fuel.
How does ice cream mess with that?
Well, when you flood the system with both major fuel sources at once, high sugar, high fat, especially in a rapidly absorbed liquid, semi-liquid form, the body almost gets confused. It struggles to choose what to burn and what to store.
So instead of maybe burning that energy efficiently, the body defaults to storing it, likely as fat. And that combo of high saturated fat plus high sugar actively reduces the body's sensitivity to insulin over time.
Precisely. Regular consumption seems to harm the body's crucial signaling pathways, making the cells less responsive to insulin. And beyond the sugar and fat, the sources highlight that ice cream is often loaded with stabilizers, emulsifiers, artificial colors, and flavors.
Get that texture and shelf life. Exactly. These further contribute to the overall chemical load, potentially reinforcing dependence and increasing cravings for more highly engineered, intensely sweet foods. It really can be a metabolic catastrophe packaged in a deceptively innocent, delicious bowl.
It's a tough one to hear for many people, I'm sure. Okay, we've arrived at the end of the list. Number 15, the one you called out at the start, the big one. The food or meal type that combines the threats of pretty much all the previous 14 and is consumed, well, almost daily by billions. Fast food meals, #15. Burgers, fries, combo deals.
This item really is the conclusion of our deep dive because it represents the culmination, the perfect storm of nearly every poor nutritional choice we've discussed so far.
Okay.
Fast food operations are absolute masters of food engineering. They design their products not just for taste, but for speed of consumption, low cost, and frankly, engineered dependence or addiction. The sources are very precise in calling fast food the ultimate triple threat.
Okay, let's break down that systemic threat again. It's the combination of excessive calories, unhealthy fats, and massive amounts of sodium, all maximized for addiction.
Yes, but the key insight from the sources is why those ingredients are maximized in that specific way. They often use trans fats or cheap, stable oils for flavor, mouthfeel, and frying durability, causing that arterial damage we talked about.
Right.
They use high fructose corn syrup liberally in the sodas, the sauces, even sometimes the buns, overloading the liver. And they rely heavily on sodium saturation to ensure intense palatability in every single bite, often overriding the body's natural taste preferences for less salty foods.
And the meals themselves are structured for hyperpalatability.
Absolutely. Through techniques like flavor layering, hitting that perfect balance of sweet, salty, and fatty all at once, which makes the food almost physically difficult to stop eating once you start. It overrides normal fullness cues.
So it's the highest concentration of sheer energy, delivered with the absolute lowest concentration of actual fiber, micronutrients, or real nutrition. What's the comprehensive long-term harm the sources attribute to this final category?
The long-term harm described is truly comprehensive. It affects nearly every system in the body. We're talking about severe metabolic dysfunction driven by chronic insulin resistance from the sugar and refined carbs, profound cardiovascular strain from the combination of bad fats and extreme sodium, and significant digestive system stress due to the near total lack of fiber and the high load of chemical additives, emulsifiers, and preservatives.
Wow.
If you were looking for a singular dietary pattern that maximizes the risk for a whole spectrum of chronic diseases from type 2 diabetes and obesity to heart failure and potentially even cognitive decline, the sources suggest that regular consumption of these typical fast food combo meals, which bundle together nearly all the 14 previous threats, is probably it. It stands out as the chief nutritional antagonist on this entire list. #outro.
Wow. Okay. This has been a necessary, deep, and frankly pretty sobering analysis.
It can be, yeah.
We started with the mission to understand not just what foods to avoid, but the precise mechanisms of why our sources consider them uniquely threatening. And looking back at the entire list, from that immediate shock of liquid candy to the highly addictive engineering behind fast food, the underlying pattern really seems to be about maximizing sensory pleasure and convenience, often at the direct expense of our biological integrity.
That pattern is relentless, isn't it? A reliance on excessive sugar, refined flours, intense sodium, and chemically altered or unhealthy fats. But the critical takeaway here, for you the listener, is that this knowledge actually gives you immense power.
How so?
Well, it's not about never enjoying your favorite foods again, necessarily. It's about achieving a deep, conscious understanding of the specific processes that are happening inside your body when you eat these things. Knowing about the nitrosamines forming in processed meat, the trans fats coating your arteries from fried foods, the fructose overload hitting your liver from that soda.
Understanding the why behind the what.
Exactly. That understanding allows you to make informed choices.
And the sources suggest that if you consciously reduce or even avoid these 15 specific stressors, the benefit isn't just measured in, say, lower weight on the scale, right? It's measured more deeply.
It's measured in systemic healing. It's profound, really. By removing these persistent metabolic antagonists, especially those ultra-processed categories, the deep-fried items, the various sugar bombs, you dramatically reduce the constant stress load on your kidneys, your liver, your pancreas, your arteries.
You give your body a break.
You give your body the opportunity to regulate its metabolism naturally again. You allow your hormonal systems, your inflammatory response, to hopefully return to a healthier baseline. You essentially give your body the chance to thrive long-term, not just survive day-to-day fighting these inputs.
That's the key takeaway then. Give your body the chance to thrive. Now, since so many of these items, as you pointed out, rely so heavily on the same few core ingredients for their palatability and addictiveness, excessive sugar, unhealthy fats, and extreme sodium.
That unholy trinity.
Right. We want to leave you, the listener, with one final provocative thought, something that builds on this cumulative threat we've just explored. If you were forced to choose which single primary offender, just one,
Okay.
liquid sugar, synthetic trans fats, or those extreme sodium levels, which one do you think has the most widespread and maybe significant irreversible systemic impact on the average person's long-term health over an entire lifetime?
That's a tough one.
It is. Which one would it be and why? Something to consider maybe, thinking about the silent damage each one inflicts next time you consider what goes into your shopping cart or onto your plate.